In the shadowy corridors of geopolitics, few relationships have been as volatile and consequential as that between the Islamic Republic of Iran and the intertwined security architectures of the United States and Israel. What started as a regional rivalry soon spiraled into a full-scale confrontation that reshaped Middle Eastern history. The roots of this conflict trace back decades through proxy wars, covert operations, and mutual mistrust. On Iran's Islamic Revolution in 1979 and the subsequent U.S. support for Iraq in the Iran-Iraq War laid the first stones of enmity. Over time, Tehran cultivated powerful alliances with groups like Hezbollah and Hamas, viewing itself as the champion of resistance against what it called Western imperialism and Zionist aggression. By 2024, tensions had erupted into direct military confrontations. One of the first large-scale Iranian attacks against Israel occurred on the 1st of October 2024. When Tehran launched around 200 ballistic missiles toward Israeli military facilities, including Nevatim and Tel Naf air bases, in a campaign dubbed Operation True Promise 2. Iran stated this was retaliation for Israeli assassinations of key militant leaders and airstrikes on Iranian soil. While Israel's air defenses intercepted most missiles, the salvo signaled a major escalation. Iran was willing to directly engage Israel with conventional firepower, not just proxies. Just months later, in June 2025, Iran once again fired hundreds of ballistic missiles at Israel after a major Israeli operation targeted Iranian nuclear and military infrastructure. These June strikes were among the largest exchanges of missiles in the Middle East since the Gulf Wars, compelling Israel to activate air defense systems such as Iron Dome and David's Sling across its territory. To Israeli strategists and their American allies, these Iranian attacks were not isolated incidents but signs of an evolving policy. Tehran increasingly saw missile salvos as the primary instrument of retaliation, a blunt but potent tool that could impose strategic costs on its adversaries and test their thresholds of response. By late 2025, analysts were discussing the possibility that future conflicts between Iran, Israel, and the United States might not only involve ballistic missiles, but also drones, cyber attacks, and coordinated strikes across the Gulf, a fear that would soon become reality. The first historic moment in this new chapter came during what would later be called the 12-Day War of June 2025, a brief but intense conflict that marked Iran's most significant strike directly against U.S. military forces in recent decades. On June 23, 2025, Iran launched a large barrage of missiles aimed at Al Udeid Air Base in Qatar, a critical hub for U.S. Central Command. The attack came in response to Operation Midnight Hammer, a U.S. strike on Iranian nuclear facilities the previous day, and was the first deliberate Iranian strike targeting U.S. assets in the Arabian Peninsula. The missiles, launched with precision and coded as Operation Glad Tidings of Victory by Tehran's military planners, drew global attention. Although many were intercepted, and Qatar claimed that its air defenses stopped the majority, some rockets hit peripheral installations and radar arrays at the base. And this was a profound symbolic breakthrough for Iran. It had directly engaged the United States' largest regional military presence, not through proxies or third-party militias, but with state-to-state nomenclature and strategic intent. The reverberations were political as well as military. Washington, unaccustomed to such direct challenge, was forced to reconsider its regional posture. U.S. commanders reinforced other bases across the Gulf and urged allies to condemn Iran's actions. and some analysts warned that if such exchanges continued unchecked, future rounds could involve far more destructive missiles or even escalation into full aerial or naval warfare. For Iran, the Al-Udeid strike was both a message and a milestone. It broadcast Tehran's refusal to accept what it saw as repeated violations of its sovereignty, and heralded a new era in which retaliation would no longer be a distant threat, but an immediate strategic choice. The fragile balance shattered at the end of February 2026 under the weight of larger geopolitical forces. On February 28, 2026, the United States and Israel launched a massive coordinated offensive against Iran, codenamed Operation Epic Fury. Perhaps the most consequential joint strike in decades. Over 200 targeted jets and numerous missiles, including U.S. Tomahawk cruise missiles, hit hundreds of facilities across Tehran and other cities. These strikes targeted missile launchers, air defenses, nuclear sites, and command and control centers. The operation also hit the secure compound of Iran's supreme leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, and Iranian state media later confirmed his death. This was a seismic blow, shaking Iran's political foundations and triggering widespread shock. Within hours of the initial bombing, Iran responded with a ferocity that would live long in history. Drawing on its expanded missile inventories and drone fleets, Tehran launched a multi-vector wave of counterattacks targeting Israel and U.S. military bases throughout the Gulf. Missiles streaked across the skies over Bahrain, Kuwait, Qatar, the United Arab Emirates, and Saudi Arabia, prompting air defenses to activate on an unprecedented scale. According to multiple reports, Iran's strikes reached at least 9 countries hosting Western forces, as well as Israel itself. In Israel, air raid sirens wailed in cities from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem as Iranian missiles tested Israeli defenses. At U.S. bases, explosions and alerts spread from Qatar's Al-Udeid to Bahrain's naval facilities guarding the Fifth Fleet. This sequence marked the third and most consequential chapter in Iran's retaliation legacy. Tehran had not only struck back but had done so at scale, with strategic calculation and political messaging. The world watched in real time as centuries-old regional divisions collided with global powers, threatening to redraw the maps of alliances and enmities. In the days that followed, the true cost of this exchange started to crystallize. Within Iran, the toll of Operation Epic Fury became tragically visible. In the southern city of Minab, a missile strike destroyed a girls' elementary school, killing scores of young students and igniting global outrage. Iran's officials presented the images of the shattered classrooms as proof of Western aggression and called on the world to recognize what they described as disproportionate force. Meanwhile, our diplomatic corridors buzzed with crisis talks. The United Nations convened emergency sessions as world powers sought to prevent further escalation. Russia and China condemned the joint U.S.-Israeli offensive, while others warned that the conflict could trigger a wider regional conflagration affecting global energy markets, particularly oil flowing through the Strait of Hormuz. On the ground, Iran's leadership entered a new phase. A temporary council, led by President Masoud Pezeshkian and military commanders, assumed governance responsibilities as the country mourned its fallen leader. Tehran publicly vowed that this retaliation was just the beginning. that any future aggression would meet equal force. For the United States and Israel, the aftermath prompted intense debate at home and abroad. In Washington, criticisms over the war's legality and strategic wisdom grew. In Israel, our reserve forces remained mobilized as civil defenses braced for future waves. In historical terms, the 5 major missile engagements, from the October 2024 strikes through June 2025's barrage, the Al-Udeid attack, and Iran's sweeping 2026 countersalvos, will be remembered as a pivotal turning point. They underscored a new reality. Iran was no longer a peripheral threat operating through proxies, but a central actor capable of direct, strategic military retaliation against even the most powerful adversaries.